Hello, and welcome to Books and the World. I'm your host, Judith Partelow, and Books and the World is an interview show produced by the Cape Cod Writers Center and the Cape Media Center. The Writers Center was established over six decades ago and sponsors a 4-day writers' conference every summer on Cape Cod. The goal of Books and the World is to show how writers, illustrators, publishers, editors, and others in the literary field play their roles in the world of books and other communications media. This show has been broadcast continuously since 1978, making it the longest running program of the kind in the United States. Today we are delighted to welcome Rosemary Dunn Moeller, poet of Long-Term Mates, Migrate, Great Distances. Yes. Welcome, Rosemary. So
Thank
happy
you.
to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
I'd like to read about the author first, because I think it will give our audience a lot of information about you and all the things that have gone into writing this book. Rosemary Dunn Moeller has called South Dakota home for 47 years, since she married Lester Moeller in a Malian wedding ceremony in Mali, when they were in the Peace Corps. Before that was cross-country and European travels, degrees from University of Rochester, New York, and College of St. Rose, New York. After settling on the Moeller family farm, she taught at Huron University, University of North Dakota at Grand Forks, University of South Dakota summer camp for gifted students, and was a Fulbright scholar in Nobuoka, Japan. Yes. She and her husband have traveled to all 7 continents following bird migrations and opportunities for adventures. And then since retirement from teaching, she's had poetry and stories published in, I'm going to not go through them, but many publications, all right? She is passionate about being a grandmother to 3, mother to 3, wife to a saint martyr who puts up with her. Yes. Reading scientific journals and poetry keeps her balanced. Music is prayer and friends are treasures. Life is good. So thank you, Rosemary, and I'm happy to say that I'm one of your friends, so thank you very much. So also there's an endorsement here by Mary Alice Hogue, author of Out of Loneliness, and I would just like to read this to you. In her extensive collection of poetry, Rosemary Dunn Moeller tunnels deep into the experience of living on the land, whether that be the waters of Nantucket Sound or the grasslands and fields of South Dakota. Her poetry is an experiment in sound and rhythm, rich with internal rhyme and meticulous pacing, as well as stunning metaphors such as sunsets are orange to blue experiments in color wheels. What a nice, what a nice endorsement for you. So Rosemary, before we begin our conversation, yes, I would love for you to read the title poem of your book.
Long-term mates migrate great distances. Along Nantucket Sound at Dennisport, where Swan River runs out into the salty sea, I watch buffleheads far out from shore who don't know we're cold today, the middle of winter, wind chill factor too low to watch for long. Sunshine's brightest in this afternoon when I step across ice on sand that still moves under my feet, that can't harden like sod. We've migrated here to where it's just cold, get away from sub-zero Dakota. I too like this season, the somewhat moist wind that forces me to breathe shallower and adjust binoculars with hands ungloved quicker than I thought I could. Rhododendron leaves have curled but remain green as the ivy along my porch. Cedars and pines are as faithful to life as my mate who came here, unwilling, who never left the farm in winter before this retiring, guilty in his recliner reading modern strategies for bridge. He sips a third cup of coffee and occasionally fidgets. I float along Cape roads, bird watching, never very far from him. I might stop for coffee and a sweet chocolate treat for my farmer without a field to check or animals to feed, new to this migration, but willing to try to survive without the prairie and pastures.
I love it.
I do too.
No,
I do too.
It tells so much about you and about, your husband's reluctance to come to Cape Cod, to leave
He
his
loves it
farm.
now.
Now, okay.
He loves it here
Yeah,
now.
that's good.
But yes, he was extremely reluctant, wondering what he would do without his farm and fields and all that we've worked
Right.
on for so long.
Yeah. So I want to know, as a girl, did you spend a lot of time outside, and did you fall in love with nature at that point?
Wow. I don't know when I fell in love with nature. I fell in love with new landscapes and new views of things and new smells and sights. I don't remember differentiating between being like where I grew up in the summers in Saratoga and where I lived in Albany, New York, and the rest of the year. The parks, the streets, everything had nature in it. So it wasn't like one place or the other, but I was happy outdoors.
Right. Right. Now, where exactly do you consider that you grew up?
Albany and Saratoga
Okay.
are, and I am a New Yorker.
Oh, okay.
In spite of not having lived there since I turned 24, I'm still a New Yorker.
Okay. And when did you start writing?
I don't know. I used to write poems and stories and all sorts of things in school growing up, all the developmental stuff. But when I taught, whether it was university or high school or wherever I was teaching, grade school, I always did the assignments I gave. So I love teaching creative writing because it's like, I had to do those assignments for class. I liked it, but it wasn't until I retired from teaching that I really looked at the value of writing to growth and development and vision.
Yes, yes. So, do you have special poets that inspired you, would you say?
I love that question. I loved Robert Frost.
Okay.
I loved Emily Dickinson. My father and I would go out fishing at night on Saratoga Lake. And I didn't realize this was unusual. Dad could recite entire poems of Kipling's and Wordsworth's out in the dark under the stars fishing at night. And I thought I was really surprised to find out all that stuff by Kipling had been written down in books.
Oh.
I thought my father just knew it. There's something about the storytelling. I do like narratives. I do like a poem that has some plot to it. But the inspiration to me comes behind the medium. There is as much inspiration to me in listening to The Ascension of a Lark or Ralph Vaughan Williams, Brahms, the sounds that come from the same inspiration, the look of an Audubon, or a photographer who catches a meadowlark in that microsecond between heartbeats. This is as much inspiration as Mary Oliver, and that's saying a lot because I love Mary Oliver's writings. And Billy Collins. There's so many though. Wendell Berry. It's just.
I get it.
But it's not just poetry.
Right. It doesn't seem that
inspiration.
Whenever you speak, you are so poetic in your language, and you do draw from so many different places, and I love how you've interwoven the like a woman's life with the stories of the birds. I love that, and I also I love the way that you bring in farming as well. Into it. I want you to read Ode to Oriole, if you would.
I love that one
because this, I think, is an example of interweaving your own life and those of women in general to the birds.
Which I've of course forgotten where it is.
Okay. Page 8 and 9.
Oh, you mean the one I had the bookmark in? Yeah, that one. Okay, this is the reason why there are lots of color photographs in this book, because a lot of people do not know what an oriole nest looks like. It's a pouch that is hanging from the trees. We have one right above Snow Creek outside our house, our porch, and they're all over.
And this is on Cape Cod.
Yeah, but they're all over in Dakota. I mean, you find the orioles around, and they weave these incredible nests, and I happen to be a weaver. I love to knit. Not crochet that much, but I love to knit. And I love weaving, and I'm fascinated by the process. Ode to Oriole. Excuse me, please. Your feet and claws, nothing like my needles. Your beak doesn't resemble my crochet hook, but your nest reminds me of my knitted blanket I spent months on. In less time, you completed an avian opus hanging from a branch of strength and flexibility outside my porch. I couldn't have learned from others unless some wise woman once watched your techniques, skill, and determination. I may be driven by the same instincts to warm my babies, soften my home with fibers, where we sit and observe what we don't understand. The maple your mate selected, neighborhood near fruit, and an insect supermarket, trees and waters acceptable to both of us. And we do our thing with moss and grass outside, fibers and fabrics inside, until satisfied for a season. My hands are taught by your feet and beak in active meditation on what warms and protects. We too migrate, then return to produce what we must on slightly wooded plains in sun and warm summer breezes, waiting for our creative nodding to wear out and be replaced by more and more. I love Orioles.
Oh my goodness.
They're so cute too.
Yeah. And your language is so rich. I love that. I just love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
I enjoy
for reading
that
that.
one a lot.
So there are lots of references to farming too.
Yes.
And I just would love you to read Planting Season.
Oh, I love that one.
If you would. It has a lot of humor and references to farming in it. So, and then, we'll have a really good idea of your writing.
Planting Season.
Leave it, hold the book down. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just try to hold it down a little. So
Okay.
No.
We drove around checking osprey nests for occupants. Finally got lucky in Brewster near the shore. They were mating as we watched. bird porn. A short bit of feathers and crying out, and the male took off, swooping, calling, letting salt marshers know that he'd started a new generation. Females just settled into the work of nesting without fanfare or brouhaha. We went home and packed. Next day, my sister drove us to Barnstable. Plymouth Brockton bus went right to Logan. Plane goes to Sioux Falls. Our youngest picks us up and we go back to the farm, missing the part about egg laying, chicks hatching, fledging, or failure. Our fields are dry, but we'll plant anyway. It's not bad enough to give up. It never is. Always we plant. It's an act of faith in the earth. Ospreys have faith in the sky. For the chick to first fly, it must believe in wind, lift, and thrust. We believe in earth, seeds, rain, and time.
Thank you. Beautiful. So beautiful.
You're
So you've
welcome.
done a
Thank
lot
you.
of traveling.
Yes.
And one of the things I was wondering, do you travel for the purpose of writing poetry about the birds there, or do you find the poem after you've been to this place?
Usually after I've been somewhere, it's a wonderful way. You know, instead of, to me, instead of making a scrapbook, I have poems from places, like the one about Connemara in Ireland, you know. And I remember in Antarctica, oh gosh, that was so amazing. And the poems are what I have to remember and to relive the moment and to think about what a phenomenal existence we have.
So you don't write them
opportunities.
there, you write them usually afterwards?
Usually, not always. Sometimes what I write on site, I look at afterwards and go, what were you thinking? And other times I think, oh, wow, that's a good haiku. And other things grow into other things. And
Right.
sometimes it takes years before I see what it was I experienced in relationship to another place that I happen to be.
Right, right.
There is a commonality. I absolutely love Celtic stone sites all through Britain and in Ireland and France. And then I get out on the prairie and I get over to the stone sites and the medicine, you know, and all things come together because it's all ways of seeing where we are in the universe.
Oh boy, Rosemary, I think you're very unique in your observations. I really do. Yeah. What did I say? Oh, you humanize the birds, but then you sort
I
of
do.
bird size the humans. I mean, the way you sort of interweave the metaphors and you know putting. How long did it take you to write this?
Which this?
Well, your book, is it a collection of a long period of time?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, because I mean, I'm working right now on a book about, for my grandson. He's too young, he'll never see this. He's 5, he doesn't watch this on TV. But it's a cassowary, a kangaroo, and a lizard in Australia. And it's a sestina, which is, I know, very unpopular, formal poetry. People don't do that anymore. I love form. I love sonnets. I love triolets. Sometimes I just feel like doing those.
Yeah.
It's like exercises.
Right, right.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
running scales before you start playing the piano for
Sure,
fun,
yeah.
you know, and just kind of limbering up the fingers. I like that. And I keep learning more and more about, and the habitats are changing, and migrating patterns are changing, and the numbers are plummeting.
Yeah. Do you see that this talks about the environmental concerns?
Which are very,
yeah.
very real concerns.
Yeah.
And I know there is that personification, and I don't mean to anthropomorphize. I think birds are fine as they are.
Yeah.
They don't need to be humans, except I do tell children's stories with birds as humans. Anyway, in terms of the writing of this book, I feel the connection between my goals in life, which is, you know, raising, taking care of my family, being with my spouse, keeping house. And I mean, that's common to an awful lot of species. And so it's not like, I don't think anthropomorphizing, it's just finding that common ground and enjoying it.
Right. Yeah.
And as much as I like the idea of continuing to live and grow and develop and learn, I think they would too.
Yes.
Have that opportunity, that we should not destroy what they need to survive, their habitats, their food, their clean air and water. And it's such basic stuff, but it's very, very important that we be thinking about it.
There are a lot of photos and illustrations. Do you want to tell us about those?
Oh, I would read my poems at writing groups, and people would say, "Oh, well, yeah, but what's a puff? What's a puffin?" And I thought, oh, "You don't know what I'm talking about, do you?" And I felt the need, and a lot of these photographs are by Colleen Nelson, a South Dakota photographer who is just lovely and darling. And, but obviously not the ones from Africa and other places, and Australia and other places. But it's so important to me that people not see bird. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I like birds. Keep going, honey. You know, waterfowl, predators, you know, owls. Got hundreds and hundreds of those.
Yeah.
The specificity of interest is important to me. Just like whenever I did teach writing, you know, you cannot say trees, you cannot say plants, you cannot use general nouns. You have to be species specific in your writing. You have to be able to see what it is you're looking at.
Right, yes.
And it's I think, important. I don't know why, but I do think it's important to see, to hear the specific sounds, to feel. Somehow roses and lilies of the valley do not smell alike, and they shouldn't. You know?
I think I am at fault for referring to just birds.
Yeah.
I must say, but I really understand what you're saying. Let's see. I wanted to talk about the. Well, I wanted to read this one. The second stanza of "Following Loons to the Seashore." If you don't mind, if I read it.
Oh, go ahead. Loons. Oh, loons are fascinating.
I'm packing, leaving the Cape, to catch another spring opening on the prairie. Migrating when loons molt back to Midwest colors, where freezing winds not for Scythia are part of April days. Winter comes earlier in the Dakotas, harsher, more blustery than on this eastern shore. I watched prairie winter arrive when sun still says autumn, then migrate east with loons to the seashore to turn gray. Winter waits for our return before receding north. And that's just one stanza of the poem. It's not the end, but I just think it's so lovely to be talking about the changes between the Cape and South Dakota, and you know.
Yeah, I always say I have incredibly open, wide, flat horizons to look at. No trees in the way on either horizon, either the ocean or the prairie.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your farm?
Oh, wow. It's our farm is in Han County, in the center of South Dakota, in East River, South Dakota, and it's been in Leicester, my husband's family, since 1952. His parents moved there and bought it, and the kids, you know, grew up there, and I came there after we got married in Mali, and I had no idea in the entire Han County, and this is the size of like Barnstable County, almost, not the islands.
Mm-hmm.
There is not one natural body of water. No ponds, no lakes, no rivers to speak of, just, you know, seasonal creeks. The prairie is as flat as the ocean and dry, unbelievably dry. In the autumn, instead of having trees and leaves and colors changing, you literally have to get down on your knees and see all the shades of browns and reds and orange in all of the different grasses. Because as soon as you stand up, the colors will blend into brown. And it was like, it took me years to discover that.
Mm-hmm.
It took so long because at first it was such a shock to my system. The absence of water, the absence of the seasonal changes I had learned. And then I had to learn about all of these seasonal changes. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to me. And I wonder about, you know, how our trees are doing.
Yeah.
On the, in the breaks around the farmhouse.
I'm going to have to stop you there, but I just want to say thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for introducing us to your world and your poetry and your passion.
Yeah, I got a lot of that.
It's just wonderful. Where do you have a website, and where can your book be purchased?
I do not have a website. The books are available at Bread and Roses on Main Street in Hyannis. And
anything online for people to know?
Scurf P Publishing.
Okay, how do you spell that?
SCURFPEA, which is a darling little plant that grows on the prairie.
Okay.
Scurf P Publishing. And it's a South Dakota publisher, wonderful editor, and great reading.
Great.
A lot of really good Midwestern writers.
Thank you. So if you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more, you'll find links to them through our website, CapeCodWritersCenter.org, through our Facebook page and on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching Books and the World.
Thank you so much. That was fun.